Hi, everyone. This is Kathy Meis of Publish. I'm here to talk with you today about metadata is your brand, which probably a lot of you haven't thought about. It's a rather new concept, and I'm really excited to share it with you today. Before we get started, let me just explain we're going to have a live Twitter chat. This is about a 40-minute presentation, and at the end, we'll go live at Publish Me on Twitter to answer your questions. The hashtags are below. You can see them. Indie, Author, Fringe 16, IAF 16, and Publish are the hashtags you can use for the live Twitter chat. So write down your questions as we go, save them, and let's chat on Twitter afterward. Looking forward to it. So a little bit about me. I have more than 20 years of experience in the media and publishing industry. I have made my living off of writing as an editor, a journalist, a ghostwriter of books, and I speak and blog frequently about book marketing, publishing, and author brand building, specifically in the digital age. I'm also the founding partner of PubSmart, which is a business conference that was started here in Charleston, South Carolina, where I live in the States. And I'm also the founder of Publish, which is a platform that helps authors share their stories with the world. So let's get started and talk about what we're going to talk about today, which is what the heck is metadata? I think some of you will be very familiar with that term if you're a little farther down the road on your publishing journey. Others, this term will be something that makes you run and hide because it's intimidating, but in fact, we're going to simplify it, break it down for you today. We're also going to talk about metadata trends that are really impacting author brands. So it's going to be very important for you to link these two concepts of a powerful author brand and translating that into metadata. We're going to talk about the types of metadata that are important for you to understand. There's a number of different types. There's simple, there's more complex metadata, and the term itself is really evolving. So at its core, metadata is connecting the dots for readers when they're online. And we're going to get into showing you some examples through data and case studies of how that can make a real difference in your ability to sell books in the online mobile world we live in. We're going to talk about some best practices and recommendations. And as I mentioned, we're going to have the Q&A on Twitter at Publish Me after the presentation. So if you want to follow at Publish Me on Twitter real fast and write down those hashtags IAF16 and Publish, that's going to be a great start. Also, just want to let you know at the end, I'm going to share a link where you can download a resource guide. I'm going to be talking a lot about different subjects, and I put together just a list of really useful links about the topics that I'm going to be covering today. So stay tuned for that. So first of all, a few terms I'm going to frequently use throughout this presentation to make sure that we're all on the same page, that we all understand the terms the same way. The first term is I'm going to talk a lot about author brand. And at its simplest, an author brand is your promise to readers. What type of reading experience will you offer readers? That is part of your author brand. What type of community do you offer around you and your work? That is also part of your author brand. And what's particular, unique to your reading experience that you offer, that is also part of your author brand. Now, your brand message, another term you'll hear me use throughout this presentation, is how you explain that promise to readers. So you've got your author brand and the way you talk about it, your brand message. If you're still new to being an author, figuring out your author brand is probably one of the most important places to start. Take the time to work on your brand message, figure out who you are, how you fit in the marketplace, and how you're different from the books that are like yours. And I've, again, put together a bunch of resources on this topic, so don't get overwhelmed by that process. We provide a lot of thought leadership at Publish, so we're always sharing resources, and I'm happy to share some resources with you on this. The second term that you'll frequently be hearing me use throughout this presentation, of course, is metadata. And metadata is really just the data or the information that computers use to access, present, share you and your books online. So it's how platforms, search engines, algorithms, distribution channels, and all things computer related see you and your book's connection to the rest of the online world. For readers to discover your work today, you must provide accurate and complete metadata, but you're going to have to take it a step further, and that's one of the things that we're going to talk about in today's presentation. So there are many types of metadata, and to be honest, we could spend days talking about metadata. There are just entire associations devoted to monitoring metadata, improving metadata, dealing with it in its evolving state. And today, I don't want to overwhelm you with too much, but my goal is to simply get you thinking about the importance of making sure that computers can accurately translate the information about you, your books, your author brand, and your brand message. Okay, so just think about that. It's very important that computers can accurately translate information about you, your books, your author brand, and your brand message. That's the big takeaway. I'm going to show you a bit about how to do that to get started thinking always, whenever you're creating things around your brand, that the computers can translate that. I really want you to understand that learning about metadata is important for your success as an author. And again, I've got lots of resources on metadata, how to research it, how to understand it, and I'll be sharing those links at the end of this presentation. So generally speaking, though, there are the two types of metadata. There is basic or core metadata, and then there is enriched metadata. And basic metadata includes information like your book's title, your ISBN, the author's name, the book's genre, the price of your book, things like that. Enriched metadata includes information like your author bio, your book's synopsis, excerpts from your book, reviews of your book, awards that you've won, interviews you've done. So it's the enriched metadata is the kind of information that might influence someone's decision to buy your book or to help a bookseller make a recommendation. So the first one is really, this is my book in a nutshell, and the second one is a little bit more powerful in influencing buyer decisions. So every time that you upload a book to an online retailer or a social platform, you fill out forms that require basic and enriched metadata. And in order for your metadata to be effective, a couple of things. First of all, it must be accurate. This means no misspellings. You can't have a typo in the first word of your synopsis or your author bio. It's very important that it's accurate. Computers can't always read, understand a mistake. If you misspell a word and it has a different context, then you've told the computer the wrong thing. So very important that you think about accuracy. The second thing with metadata is it must be consistent. And even though I see inaccurate metadata frequently, I see tons of inconsistency in metadata. For example, don't use your middle name for one listing of your book and a middle initial for another listing. So, I see these mistakes all the time. Even I'll see on the cover of the book, the author's name is written one way, and then in the metadata, the fields that were filled out for the retailer or the site, it's listed a different way. And then in another site, it is listed a different way. So this is just a really small mistake that has big consequences, because computers are then not able to connect the dots as effectively because they're seeing things in different ways, and they may or may not be able to make a connection between all those inconsistencies in your metadata. So really, accuracy and consistency, very important. And if either of these are off, your metadata is less effective and you are less able to translate the information about you, your book, your brand message into these powerful online systems that show your work to readers. So be consistent. Finally, make sure that your metadata is complete as possible. Don't miss the opportunity to enrich your metadata when it's available. So if there are fields that ask for reviews, don't skip that. Add those. If there's opportunities to list awards, don't miss out on that. Take the time to go and get the information and put in the format that the online retailer or the platform is requesting of you, and make sure that you input as much as you can to really give your listing there the most information possible. So when readers access it, they get a rich reading experience about you and your book. It also makes you look professional or unprofessional to have complete or incomplete metadata. So we'll get to some examples of how this all kind of shows up in the real world later in the presentation. But before I move to the next slide, let me ask you a quick question. Let's see if you have your metadata game on here. So what is the most important piece of metadata for an author in their book? Well, according to Nielsen, it's your book's cover image. Yes, your book's cover image is a piece of metadata. So there's no other metadata element that comes close to having an impact on sales. Covers still sell books. So have a great cover. Make sure the metadata on that cover is excellent. Make sure the tagging behind that piece of that visual piece of metadata is well tagged. It's really powerful, and they've done the research to prove this. So, combining these two ideas of the brand and metadata, it has never been more important in the history of publishing to be able to translate your brand message into computer speak. Let me just say that again. It has never been more important to be able to translate your brand message into computer speak, also known as metadata. So as Laura Dawson, a leading authority on metadata, told me, even word of mouth conversations typically end up with some kind of online search, and that involves metadata. So whether we like it or not, guys, computers now heavily influence an author's ability to connect with their audience and make sales online. So just in case that you're not completely convinced about the brand metadata opportunity here, let me share a couple of facts. First, about brand. So as you build your brand, you build what's called brand equity. And as you build awareness about your brand, you'll find that your sales go up, because here's the thing: in a world that is flooded with content, people flock to what they know. And the data is there. Readers are 15 times more likely to purchase a book from authors they know. So just think about that. Also, what's really powerful is book buyers expect to pay a significant premium for brand authors. Now, brand authors are, in the tens of thousands of fans, but you will hit a threshold if you are able to successfully build an author brand for a target audience who becomes your raving fans. You can start to charge more for your work. Fans, once they understand it, they come back for more. And the reality is, for major authors, the big names that we all know, they depend on their fans for 50 to 80% of their sales. So um, getting your brand in front of people, making sure that it's very, very specific and that it does connect with readers, that your brand connects with your readership. Those things are huge, and you'll see more sales and be able to charge more for your work if you can build brand equity over time. It's not easy, it takes time, but it can be done. And a lot of independents are doing this successfully. So on the other side, the opportunity of metadata is that complete metadata with an image, like the book cover, results in a 473% boost in sales. 473% boost in sales. So that is huge. So really understanding, what metadata is and how to make it really effective and really potent, that's important. It's going to increase your sales. Complete enhanced metadata saw a 55% increase in sales. So again, really taking advantage when you're filling out a form for an online retailer or you're uploading your book to a platform, really taking advantage of all the metadata fields that are offered to you and making sure that your metadata is complete, it's enhanced, it has images, everything you can do to get it right on the metadata side. And what's fascinating is fiction saw the most dramatic improvement with complete metadata. So the reality is, if you can get your act together on the brand and the brand message, and then you can translate that into effective metadata, you are going to see more sales and revenue. And that is something not to be snuffed at in this very competitive book marketplace that we live in. In fact, what's really happening is it's becoming more and more important to be able to translate your brand message into metadata. At the highest level, before I get into these current trends, just to understand when the history of metadata is that it was really a system that was created in order to track books through this massive distribution network that needs to be in place for publishers to get their books into bookstores and to be sold there. So that's really where metadata was founded, got its start. But what's happening now is that metadata is becoming much more part of the consumer buying experience. So it went from being something that was business to business, necessary for businesses to talk to businesses, publishers to talk to bookstores. And now it's publishers, authors talking to their audience directly on online retailers, on social networks, on platforms, everywhere. So it's becoming very, very, very important to understand how to translate your brand message into metadata. So trends that really are making this crucial are, number one, that regardless of whether your book is available in print or digital or both, in the US at least, more books are now sold through online book retailers than physical bookstores. What does this mean? It means that online retailers use recommendation algorithms to influence readers' purchasing decisions. In a bookstore, it was the hand sell, human to human. In an online bookstore, recommendations are driven by algorithm. And what informs an algorithm? Metadata. Again, you're given the opportunity when you upload your book to these major online retailers to fill out a lot of fields about your book. That's all metadata. Really understand what you're doing, really study it, get it right, and those algorithms will become your advocate rather than your enemy, because you don't want them to be your enemy, because the recommendations will not happen. Trend two. Social media means that readers are creating metadata for you around your books all the time. Hashtags, tweets, pins, posts, memes. So there's all kinds of social metadata being created around your book, which means it's more important than ever for you to inform your audience with powerful metadata. So what's the hashtag you want them to use? You need to understand what it is. You need to share that with them, because in the end, if they're not taking the correct information, they're advocating for you, but to the wrong audience. So you really need to think about how your metadata looks socially for things like hashtags, for your blog, the tagging that you do, if you have a WordPress blog, all of those things, so that when people think of you and they want to tag your content, they're doing it in a clear way because you've articulated your brand message, your brand positioning, your book's genre, all those things to them clearly through your social streams, in things like your bio, in things like your website, in tags on your tweets, hashtags on your tweets, categorizations, that type of thing. The same thing here, because there is a somewhat of a merging of social search and traditional search, which to optimize content for traditional search, like a search engine box in Google, that's called SEO, which stands for search engine optimization. So there's also an opportunity there for you to inform traditional search engines. In fact, there's a blending. Google now owns YouTube, a social network. Google owns Google Plus. There's all kinds of kind of overlaps now occurring between social search and a traditional search. So what's interesting is Google is basically leading the whole concept that consumer behavior is changing forever. In their mind, they're quoted as saying that today's battle for hearts, minds, and dollars is won and lost in micro moments. And these are described by Google as intent-driven moments of decision-making and preference shaping that occur throughout the entire consumer journey. So many of these micro moments are being shared on computers. And again, I'm going to show you in a couple of slides some examples of what this looks like to the reader that might encounter your content. So before we go, that one of the places that these micro moments are occurring, of course, are mobile smartphones, or iPads, all kinds of mobile devices. And the trend here is that 82% of smartphone users consult their phone while deciding which product to buy. So that number has just skyrocketed. So mobile is a huge piece of this. And 1 in 10 of these consumers end up buying a different product than what they'd planned based on that quick look at their smartphone for information. So making sure that your brand message and your metadata, especially images, are optimized for mobile is crucial. So again, another thing that Google changed because mobile is so important, they basically said if your blog is not optimized for mobile, so look at your blog on a mobile device, and if it looks like doggy doo-doo, it's time for you to change it, because they've actually now are going to hide your content because you did not keep up with that trend and you didn't optimize your blog for mobile. And it's so important now that they are actually punishing you in search if your content isn't optimized for that. So that's a very powerful trend that's coming up. And then there's also this emerging standard. So, you've got websites and you've got online content in all different formats, including ebooks. And there's kind of an intermingling of all of it. So you have all these organizations that are trying to keep up with how to categorize. Great example is the Book Industry Study Group is in charge of the BISAC codes. Now, BISAC codes are used for categories on Amazon. BISAC codes are much more granular, as it were, than just book genres. And because we are no longer constrained in today's world by physical bookshelves, you see a lot of authors playing around with mixes in genres and crossovers. So the BISAC codes are becoming much more important to translate with a code. So the BISAC code is a content code that is associated with a number, again, translating an identifier that's important for your brand into a code. And that is really important for you to keep up with. You can access all the BISAC codes through one of the links that I'll be providing. So really important to kind of start to learn those things, because if you're going into one of these more crossover genres, there may be a BISAC code that is being developed or released this year that may just be able for you to tell the computers, that's it. That's me in a nutshell. That's what I write in a nutshell. So again, really important to kind of keep up with these emerging standards and the trends around them. So let's look at some real world examples of how metadata is impacting author brands and book sales. So these are the search results for two of the world's best-selling independent romance authors. I actually did this search for a presentation I was doing, and I thought, oh, okay, I'll just go to these two examples because they'll have it right. Surprise, missed opportunity here. So these search results showed me that first of all, they're called rich snippets. So this is something that Google provides. If you search the name Barbara Freethie or you search the name Bella Andre, these come up, highly visual, rich snippets, they're called, show up in the search. And you have the ability to create rich snippets by a number of things. Schema.org, I believe, is where you can go to find out more about rich snippets. That you can Google that. I've also provided some resources for you. But just look at the difference here. They're both visual, yes. I can tell they're both authors. They have the name author. But if you take a closer look at Barbara Freethie's, I'm learning in a nutshell that she's a #1 New York Times bestselling American author. She writes women's fiction, contemporary romance, and romantic suspense. On the other hand, you have Bella Andre, who I find out is an author, and she's born in the United States and went to Stanford. So missed opportunity there because the data for the rich snippet, the metadata, was not completely filled out. And you'll see even on Barbara's, there's a link to her Wikipedia. So talk about if I really want to learn a little bit more about her because I heard her speak or someone said I read her books, but I just want to learn a little bit more before I buy or before I follow her. I can go to that Wikipedia. So Barbara has just a really rich snippet, and Bella Andre has missed an opportunity. Still doing pretty well, so I'm not going to feel too sorry for her. Really well. And she's amazing. So another example of how metadata can impact your visibility on sites like Amazon. And again, this is primarily due to great metadata. So this book, which is distributed by Publish, was released just on April 6th. It had been in pre-order. It also went into Amazon's hot new releases on its pre-order day. If you look at the best-selling rank at the bottom, that's in blue where it says #3 in Kindle Bookstore, that's really the combination of the categories and keyword streams that were used to describe this book when it was uploaded to Amazon. So again, you're looking at how we put in the metadata when we uploaded this book to Amazon. Now, this author had, buyers and a solid opening day, but no ad budget, no huge, amount of money behind his launch. But what he did have is a very well-positioned book, and it was very well researched. And if you look, it's extremely granular, that it's going into teen and young adult, historical fiction, United States, 20th century, social and family issues, being a teen. So that really granular positioning of the book is is brand positioning for that book. So it's telling readers and it's telling the algorithms on Amazon, this is as much as I can give you in computer speak about what this reading experience is all about. And it paid off. So what happens is when you hit the best 10, the top 10 in particular subcategories, you can get into the hot new releases. And those are the best-selling new and future releases. So they're updated hourly. You're probably not going to stay there forever, but what a boost to go into this category as #1 hot new release as a first-time author. And that is really the power of metadata. So here is another really interesting case study that shows how brand messaging can be translated into effective metadata and drive more sales. So this author had been traditionally published and now is distributed by Publish. And despite writing really well-reviewed and well-written books while she was with the traditional publisher, she did not have good sales. They were very, very weak. When she came over with us, what we did first of all is overhaul the metadata. We had her do a new cover. We introduced an authentic Regency romance, which was based on a lot of research that we did around the Regency romance genre. Hers are very Jane Austen-esque. They are clean. They are authentic. They are not just in the Regency period. So again, you can see where the success of this change comes from the research you do around your audience and your brand. And I'm going to just keep coming back to that. So you go back, you start with the brand, you start with the brand message, you make sure it resonates with your audience. So as specific as you can say to readers who may take 7 seconds to take a look at your work, tell them what you're offering them, understand that, articulate that, get that right, and then make sure that you know how that's going to be translated by the computers. So in this case, if you have a subtitle on your book cover, it can become part of the title of your book. So for this particular author, she had not at that point when we started work with her written a series, but all of her books were very similar in that they were authentic Regency romances. So we put this little tag on all the books, which enabled us to make it part of her metadata. We also had her redo all the covers for branding. So there was a particular font and color scheme and look to all of her covers. And again, we know that covers are a major piece of metadata. They sell books. So as a result, and since then we have done price point experimentation, and we've enhanced the back matter, which I will show you in a second. But this change in the branding and how that branding translates into metadata at the major online retailers in 6 weeks increased her book sales 200%. Her brand has continued to grow, strengthen, and she is really doing well. And this is what's fascinating, is this is content that was already out there, and it wasn't well positioned either from a branding perspective or from a metadata perspective. And just refurbishing all of that has given it an entirely new life. It's just exciting to watch, because I think too often at Publish, we do see people who have great content, but didn't get these two pieces right. And so they're struggling to find their audience. So again, I urge you to go back and take the time to really work on that brand and really work on that brand message, and then think about the audience and how the audience is going to discover you. And in the middle of that, that's where the computers are. So just to, show you a little bit more on the back matter here. So again, every ebook that you have is a great tool for discoverability. They are giant pieces of metadata. And in the future, huge computer systems are going to be able to read our books and pull lots of information from them. Excuse me, I'm fighting off a cold. So here on the back matter of her book, so the last couple of pages of her book, we've optimized the whole thing for discoverability. There are links to her website, her Facebook page, her Twitter. She can be emailed so she can hear back from her fans. They can join her mailing list so she's capturing emails. All of these things are a click away from the back in the reading experience on the phone or the iPad or the desktop. You can go right there. In addition, all of the links to her books became live links. So when you do this, you should be very retailer specific. So the version of your book that you upload to Amazon needs to have Amazon hyperlinks. The version of the book that you upload to iBooks should have iBook links. You get the point here. But this is another example of how potent, enriched metadata can connect the dots for readers and lead to more sales. So someone's reading a book they like, and all they have to do is click to go into another reading experience. You've already got them hooked. It's a click away. Make it as easy as possible for the reader. So another thing that you should consider is working with marketing platforms that can effectively translate your brand into metadata. So that's really key. Make sure that you take a look at this when you're assessing platforms. The image on the screen now, for example, is a published book bubble. So I will tell you, because we're very passionate about metadata, that we are very cutting edge when it comes to linking the branding, the metadata, and the micro browsing experience. And that's exactly what a book bubble is. Readers can access this micro browsing experience right in the social stream. You'll notice that it's branded for the author. You'll notice that there's a lot of metadata you can see right here on there. You can see the title, you can see the genre. With a click, you can access the synopsis and the bio. You can visit the author's website. And then there's all the calls to action with a beautiful image of the book. And on the back end, what we've done is optimize all of this for traditional search. So when you upload your book to publish, you're asked, a lot of the metadata is grabbed right from the EPUB file, but you're also asked to enter keywords. So Caribbean is clearly a location that might be entered into the keywords for this book, giving it a sense of place. And that might be one way that people discover it. So Publish is not only creating a social micro browsing experience for readers, but it's optimized for traditional search engine and associating your social content with search. So when you're thinking about tools to build a dynamic author brand that will drive book sales in the digital age, you really need to look at platforms that will translate your brand message into effective metadata. They should be able to automate that process. That they should display the metadata in a visually pleasing way, because we know that visual is just so crucial in today's online Instagram type world we live in, and that the platform connects the dots for readers in its experience using metadata and brand messaging that really augment your message and help you get it out to the world. So we're getting towards the end, and I want to make sure we have plenty of time for Q&A on Twitter right afterward, but let's kind of we've gotten over a ton of information here, so let's kind of regroup and rethink the big topics that we covered. First of all, take time to craft your author brand and your brand message. Really take it seriously. It's not something you should put off. It's something you should be doing well before you write your first book. If you're into your second or third book and you're not getting traction, go back to the author brand. Do the research. Find the books that are like yours. Study them. Find your differentiator in those books. So you need to be positioned with them, but you also need to stand out there. And And it should be bigger than your books. It should be about you as an author. The more you can associate your books with you as an author, that personal brand will break through the noise. And that's important to know. Each book has its own particular brand, but you as an author need to have that umbrella brand, and you need to have a brand message that is bigger than a single book. And the best way to start that process is to just think about your why, think about your goals as a writer, think about the kind of writing experience you want to create for the world, and then go out and research the audience extensively who might be interested in that. And you know what? When you go out and you research the audience, you aren't going to change your why. You're not going to change your goals, but you're going to change the way you talk about it so that you connect with them. Every time you write a brand message, it should be with the reader in mind. Will this resonate with the reader that I know is interested in my work? So at the highest level, you find an author who's passionate about a particular genre. You write in that genre. What is it in your brand message that can help you connect with them? You know they're interested in your type of content. That's a start. But how can you speak to them in a way that will draw them into your author community and help your brand message resonate? So everything should be researching that target audience and how to speak to them about your author brand. And a great way to do this is to talk to your audience, to ask for feedback. It's very important for you to start engaging with them early in the process. Again, if possible, before you write your first book. Our favorite thing at Publish is to start to work with an author 9 months to a year before they launch, because we can influence the process in laying this foundation for them. And one of those things is just get really comfortable talking to your audience in a feedback-oriented way while you're writing. We've built it so that you can even share excerpts from your manuscript. Start asking them, do you like this or this? Do you draw them into your journey? They will give you so much information, and it's a fabulous way for you to build a community because you really care about not only understanding what they're looking for in a book, but speaking to them in a way that makes it easy for them to try things out that you've written. The second piece, so that's the brand piece. The second piece is being able to translate your brand message into effective metadata. So we talked about the why. I showed you the examples. This is a very new concept in publishing and in self-publishing, to think about the brand message being translated into computer speak. But the reality is the world has changed forever. The way we buy things, the way we research things, the way we explore things, the way we browse things, it's forever changed. And at some point, we are on a computer. And if your brand message is wonderful, but you haven't done the second piece of work, which is learning how to effectively translate it into metadata, computer speak, then missed opportunity. So then you're going to be effective in the real world when it's person to person, but you're going to miss the online world. And quite honestly, that's where it's happening right now. So again, it starts with audience. It starts with understanding how that target audience is finding books. We looked at positioning for Meis on Amazon. Those were BISAC, driven categories that were offered by Amazon to position the book in a way that told that target audience that likes that kind of read that this is for a certain age, this is about a certain period in time, it talks about these types of issues. So understand how your target audience, once you've defined who they are and you've gone through the brand work, how are they finding books? How do they search for books? There's all kinds of resources. Again, I've put together a list of resources for you that you can access. I'll be sharing that link with you. And it has all kinds of links to tools that you can use to research keywords and find out how people are looking for things. Second point here, strive for. the three things: accuracy, consistency, um, those things, and completeness, that are really, really important. And I add here specificity, again, as specific as you can be with computers, and as customized per channel. Remember in the back matter how I said the links, and this is actually compelled by the online retailers, have to go to that same retailer. So you're customizing each of your ebook eloads for that particular retailer, so the click-throughs occur right in their online online setting, their online retail setting. And there's also, getting it right for different media. So we talked about the smartphones, making sure that your images look as good on a phone as they do on a computer screen. So strive for accuracy, consistency, specificity, customization per channel, and customization per the different media. Audit your metadata at least 3 times a year. So what this means is, what we like to encourage authors to do is do a big Google sheet, just like an Excel spreadsheet, but it's hosted on Google. So you can go back and back and back and update it. And all your social channels should be there. So if a link is added to a new book, you go back and you make sure that you do it across all your channels. If you find a more effective way to position your book through a category or a subgenre, or you change your cover art, you need to go through all your channels, and they need to be listed and make sure that you've updated them, because all the time we see that, especially someone updates their book cover and they've got an old book cover on their website. Well, if you've got 7 seconds of time and someone looks at one book cover and they go someplace else and they see a different book cover, they're like, I'm in the wrong place. Sale lost. There's just no room for inconsistency here. So go audit your metadata about 3 times a year, and invest in tools and resources that, like I said, really help you translate your brand into visually appealing micro moments that are optimized with great metadata that enables you to really reach your audience in a human way with your brand, but reach the computers that are providing that experience with the accurate computer speak they need to reveal the most rich experience. Again, those rich snippets. That's a tool that's free to use. And all you have to do is go and optimize it. So don't miss out on that. Publish, again, we try to automate as much of that experience as we can, because we know metadata is intimidating, but look for tools and resources that can help you really effectively translate your brand message into metadata that will make you discoverable, help brand you, and sell more books. So we're going to go over to the Twitter. Publish me is the hashtag, and we're going to go on and have our Q&A there. The hashtags are IAF16, so Indie Author Fringe 16, and Publish. And let's have lots of conversation there. I'm really excited to answer your questions. And also want to make clear that, we do tons of this type of thought leadership at Publish's blog. So please pop over there. There's all kinds of topics to help you become a more successful marketer of your book. One that we created just for this particular event is Metadata is Your Brand Resource Guide. Go ahead and write down the link. I'll also share it on Twitter so you can access it. We will ask for your email, but I promise you, if you sign up, you're just going to get lots of interesting thought leadership, more webinars, things to help you be more successful. So I hope this was valuable to you. I'm really excited to answer your questions, and thanks for listening. Take care. Bye-bye.